Today on Isolation Nation, we embrace our fortune cookie philosophy. What does that mean? It's going to make sense. I'll tell you in a second. Plus, our Be the Isolation Nation Chef Challenge begins right here. All right, guys, I'm going to give you your assignment. You don't know what it is. I want your immediate reaction. You need to make fortune cookies. Chef.
What the fortune cookies?
That's right.
Chinese?
Actually, funny that you say that because fortune cookies aren't Chinese. Matter of fact, in China, they don't even know what they are. Core fortune cookies.
I am ready to go. I've been to China before. Did not see one fortune cookie when I was there. I'm just trying to think, like, am I allowed to go to Google and figure out a recipe, or do I have to just do this off the top of my head? Because if so, then I'm screwed.
No, you can go. You can find the recipe and make it, chef. Later in the show, we'll find out what their plans are for making the greatest fortune cookie ever and what to write inside. Plus, our final installment in the How to Keep Your Marriage Together series by Dr. Julie Goldenson. She maybe should practice what she preaches.
I have cut my husband's hair, and with his permission, I will show you why I cannot be a hairdresser.
Oh my God, that's terrible. Yeah, that was just awful. Oh my God. I mean, we recorded that before. We tried to play it on Friday. We ran out of time. But, you know, her marriage apparently is still intact. The rule is do not, if you want your relationship to remain intact, do not cut your partner's hair. This is Isolation Nation. It's Monday, and somehow really amazing guests continue to say, yeah, I'll do it, which is today. I think that you will learn so much about one particular topic. But before we get to that, I said I would explain our fortune cookie theory. This is my theory of what a show like this should be and what a charity like Sick Not Weak should be. And that is, the fortune cookie is all about what? It's all about the cookie, right? If you just had the fortune and it was on the table in the Chinese restaurant that you went to, you'd go, who cares? So the idea for us is to build the cookie, the yummy, tasty cookie with a small message inside. And that's what we try to do every day on this show, which is the fun is the cookie part. The irreverence is the cookie part. And the message inside, let's see what this message is inside. The message inside is the mental health thing. So that's the fortune cookie theory. It is, you are sensitive, sympathetic, and considerate. That is not a fortune. That is a statement. This is terrible. You are sensitive, sympathetic, and considerate. Is that a fortune? Let's find out. Let's find out what Taya has to say. Taya Valkyrie, professional wrestler, Canadian, on to talk about, well, first of all, is that a fortune?
Absolutely not. That is not a fortune.
Yeah, that's like you know, that's a statement. A fortune would be, you will meet a wonderful, interesting woman on your show today. That would be a fortune.
Exactly.
How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to speak to you and touch on some of these really important subjects.
So you are an Impact wrestler. You have wrestled and still wrestle from time to time in Mexico. Am I correct?
Yes, I still work for AAA. I'm actually their current Reina de Reinas champion. I'm a 3-time and first ever non-Mexican born woman to do so, be champion down there. So I've been representing Canada nationwide, worldwide, I should say. So.
And today happens to be your second wedding anniversary, right? And yes, that is significant because it's your second wedding anniversary, but also because people would know your husband from wrestling as well. Professional wrestler, currently on SmackDown. He wrestles as John Morrison. Is that correct?
Yes, my husband, John, is back in the WWE as of a few months ago, and he is on Friday Night SmackDown as John Morrison.
Right, but his name is actually John Hennigan, right?
Yes.
Right. But he's also gone by Johnny Nitro, correct?
Johnny Nitro, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Impact. He's a man of a million names, but more importantly, he is my husband.
Right. And I think that what would be fitting would be if he went with your name, I think
Johnny Valkyrie sounds very cool. I mean,
although Valkyrie, technically isn't even your name at all, but you wrestlers, oh my God, it's like, how do you keep it straight? Let's talk to a guy who has made his career from professional sports as well, but only under one name. Although there's some cities he visited, I think he probably would have liked to gone under an assumed name. His name is Daniel Carcillo, two-time Stanley Cup champion, and of most significance, a mental health warrior, and also a buddy of mine who I respect for a number of different reasons. Daniel, how are you, boy?
Good, brother. How you doing?
I'm really good. Where are you right now?
Just taking some time to talk to you, and just got out of the field and going right back in it after this.
Okay, well, you'll have to explain sometime what that means, because that's not typically what someone would say. Just got out of the field. But we'll come back to that. Say hi to Taya.
Hi, Taya. How are you?
Hey, what's up?
Good to be here with you.
The two of you have something in common, and that's kind of what brought you together on today's show. Taya, you confirmed that you would do this show, I guess, about a week ago. And one of the things we wanted to talk about was bullying, because you have been bullied as a young girl in Victoria, but also as a professional wrestler. And Daniel, you were bullied your first year when you were in Sarnia, right?
That's right.
So I want to understand better what that does to you, because we hear stories all the time, terrible stories about the effect of bullying. And Hana Kimura was somebody who was a professional wrestler, 22 years of age in Japan, and she ended up taking her own life a week ago. And I want to talk about that. So like I said, the fortune cookie theory is we bounce between tough stuff to talk about and some fun. And the two of you are joined together now for eternity with a song done by Sean Cullen. This is our theme song specifically for Taya and Daniel. Roll it, Phil.
It's a nation in isolation. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. Try hard not to think of procreation. Taya Valkyrie, she likes to wrestle. Maybe one day she'll throw me through a trestle. Down in Mexico, she's a luchadora. That's one more reason that I adore her. Dan Carcillo, he used to fight. Then he realized it wasn't right. He changed his mind, turned a new leaf. Anti-bullying is his belief, yeah. It's a nation in isolation, such a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. I'd like to fight inflation, yeah. Inflation is bad.
Very nice, very nice.
He's just so cute. He really is. He's like
an
adorable.
Iconic song that will never be forgotten.
That is awesome. Okay, Daniel, you take a break. You are right now a fourth liner, so we'll get back to you probably in about 8 minutes time, and then you'll become the first liner, and we'll see where that takes us. Because I want to talk to Taya right now about your experience with bullying. Let's stay as a professional wrestler. What did you hear? What are the kinds of things? And I would imagine it was largely cyberbullying, right?
Yes. I mean, obviously being a public figure, you are expected to deal with a certain amount of this, cyberbullying stuff. But I don't think anyone can ever get used to that. Like, no one tells you how to act. No one tells you how to react. No one tells you how you're going to feel when you open your phone and the first thing you're seeing is, these awful things being said to you. It's just really awful. And I feel like, I can only speak from my personal experience, and it's been ongoing. And it's not until recently that I've been able to kind of separate myself from it. I used to take things really personally. Everybody does to a certain degree. And I just can't even imagine what it is like for young women and men coming up through school and as young adults and having to deal with social media and the things that get said to them behind a phone or a computer, because even at my age, you know, a young 21, like I still takes me back and makes me insecure about myself. But it's just something you never can get used to. And there's, you know, it's pretty awful.
Right. So what a lot of people would have a difficult time understanding is why you can't just let it roll off your back, because you are a professional wrestler. You will have a character. You know, you are all about putting on a performance that isn't necessarily who you are. So are people cyberbullying you or your the character that you play in the ring?
I think mostly, I would hope, so I would like to think that mostly they are attacking Taya, because obviously I play a villain on television, so I get attacked for character-based things. But also people think that because they know Taya from TV, they know Kira, and can then attack my personal life, my beliefs, my looks, my family, my decisions, based on what they think Taya is. I don't know. It's weird. Wrestling is one of those things where people can't separate the two, and you don't get mad at Michelle Pfeiffer for how she was as Catwoman and attack her for that. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to separate the character from the person. And I think that in professional wrestling, people just have just have trouble doing that. And I don't know. It's just like such a weird thing to deal with, because, you know, people think they know everything about us when they don't, and assume things about us. And it's just a constant thing of just being able to just, I don't know, just have that confidence to be like, this is not important. I would never take the advice of these people in regular life. Why do I care what they are saying now? You know? But I mean, just like I said, like, I don't think anybody ever gets used to that, like attacking my character, the way I look, my weight, my hair color. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Like my relationships, my friends, like it's just, people have zero level of accountability on social media. So they feel like they can really pretty much say whatever they want.
Well, we were talking before about your husband, John, who has been a professional wrestler longer than you have been, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Does he handle bullying, cyberbullying, negative comments better than you do from the standpoint, take it less personally, or does he not hear the same amount that you would hear? Because I'm sure, even though it's not like I know the answer to this, but I'm pretty sure that it would be tougher for women.
John is the calmest, most happy person I've ever met in my life. So many things just kind of roll off his back, and he always kind of almost gets upset when I get upset, because he's upset that I'm upset. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, why do you care? And I was like, I don't know, you know, but he's always been just so supportive of me and helping instill that confidence in me that these kind of things don't matter. I do not know if women get it more than men, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we do, just based on the fact that people just love to criticize women for their looks and their clothes and their hair color and their this and their that. And I feel like that's always been a thing. I'm sure that it happens to men too. I just personally, from personal experience, see that we get it a lot worse. And I don't know if that's just because we react to it more, or if I personally am more sensitive to it. There's tons of women out there that do not care, that will just kind of deal with it and just get over it. But me, for myself, I've always been a sensitive person. I've always been kind of worn my heart on my sleeve and been an open book and been very open about the way I feel about things. So it's very hard for me to just kind of like, you know, block. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know, like and people are like, why do you give it so much attention? And I'm like, honestly, out of the like 300 negative comments, eventually you have to say something, or you have to stand up for yourself. And I'm still a human being. Like, I have a husband and a mom and a dad and siblings and like all this kind of stuff, you know, and people forget that. And they're just rude and mean. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's not normal for someone to constantly be told they suck or
Yeah. Although, you know, kind of especially throw it off the record for me, I heard the words "you suck" from every imaginable person on the planet. I mean, a lot of it was just cyber stuff, right? But it was amazing. I think in every city in Canada, I heard someone yell from a car, "You suck, Landsberg," and it's no one would ever say that to your face. But driving in a car and opening the window is identical, actually, to doing it on Twitter, right? Because there's no answerability. There's no sort of face to face. So I guess I'm wondering, why can you not avoid it? Cyber. Twitter and Instagram, like, you know, I would think that you would try to avoid that, or is it part of your job?
I think to a certain degree, when it's involved, like if someone's attacking me because of a storyline that they don't like, or because I did something horrible on Impact Wrestling, then it is my job to respond, because that's a character response. But recently, thank you to my original wrestling coach, Lance Storm, also a fellow Canadian.
I know Lance.
He gave me the heads up that Twitter has some settings you can change so that you don't see everything that people write to you. And honestly, that has made my life a lot easier. And I don't know, I am definitely in a place mentally and I'm just so much more confident in myself, where these things, I really do feel like it's in the last few months, this last year, that I finally am at the point where I'm just like, you know, okay, you think I'm ugly and I'm horrible and whatever, but like, I mean, I might think the same thing about you, but I just don't need to vocalize it. Like, I don't know. Like, I try, and that just comes with confidence and with age and with life experience. And unfortunately, there are so many young women out there that don't have a support system, or don't have a voice, or don't feel that they have, you know, that confidence to like take them through and realize their worth and know that they are like worthy of love and success and everything that comes along with it. And, you know, I think that that's one thing I want to touch on today is like within professional wrestling, within sports and entertainment, I feel like it is so important for women to have a voice and to have a support system and to be there for one another. And I've always tried, as I would like to call myself like a veteran within my industry now. And I feel like I try to be there for people that are coming up and to speak to them and know that they are not alone, because a lot of the times people feel that they are alone. And this industry is hard. Sports are hard. Entertainment is hard. You are going to be criticized your entire life because you are trying to be the best at what you love to do. And you need to know that no matter what, you are worthy of life and success and love, and like nobody should ever be able to take that away from you. And that there are so many people out there that love and support you, and you know, you should be here. We want you to be here. We want you to be present, and that just one tweet or one comment is nothing compared to like the life that you have ahead of you. It's just like when you're 15 and you get a bad mark on a test and you think your life is over, you know? And I feel like there's so many people nowadays coming up in our industry and in the world in general that like their life is over because of one mean tweet, or they can never come back from that. Guess what? You can. And we're here to like tell you that like there is so much to look forward to, and you are worthy of everything. And don't ever second guess the fact that you are loved, you know?
Right. Now, the challenge is to figure a way to convince people of that, right? Because when you have struggled in your life with bullying, I'm sure you heard that from all kinds of people who said, no, you're a beautiful woman, you're smart, you're this, you're that. But that probably had a tough time seeping into your head, right? Because otherwise cyberbullying wouldn't have been a problem for you. So the question is, how do we get, you know, the 15-year-old girl or 15-year-old boy to buy into the concept that you are not what people say you are? You are, in theory, how you see yourself.
I mean, I don't have the quick answer. And I think that we all have to kind of, you know, brainstorm and think about what we can do to help those people coming up. Because I remember I was 12 years old going to Campus Elementary School in Victoria, BC, and getting picked on for being short and skinny and like wearing a really bright shirt. Like I just like the stupidest things. And I remember just being like, oh my God, my life is over. Like I'm 11, 12 years old, hearing little kids call me the B word every day at school. Like that's unacceptable. Why was I even like dealing with that? And I just think like it's insane to me the amount of hatred that some children have. And I don't think that they just learn that. They're taught that. And so I think as adults, we need to be a more positive representation for our children. And we need to show them that humans deserve respect. Right. And, I don't know. I learned manners in kindergarten, and some people need to go back to kindergarten.
Daniel. Adjusting his phone. Yeah, there you are, Daniel Carcillo. So what did you relate to from what Taya was saying?
I think that it stems back to a relationship with ourselves. I had a persona on the ice where I was a villain as well. And after every game, I'd look at my phone and there would be hate messages. But I looked at it a little bit differently. It was a confirmation that I did my job correctly. And then I try my best. It does start to weigh on you when you continue to hear the same things over and over, these negative messages. There's only so much that you can kind of block out until your internal voice starts to question, well, maybe it's true. Maybe I am a loser. And I think that if you do a lot of work, which I have done in the last 10 years, that you create this strong relationship with yourself, and you have this confidence to know that, we were speaking about this before, that these people, they just want attention. They want you to say, F off, or they want you to actually respond to them. And if you don't respond to them, then, they don't matter. They don't exist, and they're just passing on the hate, passing on their anger, and I feel sorry for them.
So Daniel, you would have experienced, and you haven't shared this information. It wasn't long ago that you started talking about how you were bullied your first year in Sarnia, which is entirely different than cyberbullying, because you're face to face, and the people that are bullying you are people who hold power over you in your life, right?
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. We were minors, and there was 11 of us. And on a daily basis, we had to deal with sexual, physical, verbal abuse. You think that you're moving away from home in your NHL draft year, and that you're going to be protected by a league that claims to be a family and not an employer, which is the Canadian Hockey League. And it just didn't happen. But what I realize now is those traumatic events really shaped me into the person that I was and the player that I was, and the absolute, I was a psycho on the ice. Sometimes off the ice until 25, until I fixed my life. And I can see now that those traumatic events of, having to strip naked and get paddled in front of our stall every day, and having to sit back to back in a shower, getting peed on, getting spit on a daily basis, getting stuffed naked into a bathroom on the bus. I can see how those traumatic events really formed this person, Carbomb, because I recently did an article for the Washington Post, and my AA coach made a really telling statement. He said, I don't know when Daniel changed from being a finesse player to being that fighter and Carbomb per se. And I could see how after those events happened, I got into a lot of trouble in the OHL. I wasn't able to control my emotions on the ice. And there were a lot of things that I tie back to that trauma that I never dealt with. And I only started speaking about it 2 years ago when I heard about the St. Mike's story. And it triggered me in a way that I had a panic attack. I didn't understand what was happening. It's amazing what you can do with emotional trauma, and you put it in a box. And I had to call Theo Fleury to kind of talk me through what was happening to me. And, these events now have done a lot of work on myself over even the last 2 years, and I can reconcile with them. And I can understand that the coach who harbored that environment, who's still coaching, by the way, in Hockey Canada, is sick. And the veterans that were doing that to us, they were broken men too, and they were young men, and they were broken down by this same coach, Jeff Perry. And so I feel sorry for everybody. I've forgiven everybody, and you just have to now kind of reconcile. And you know, that's one of the reasons why my kids will never step foot in a hockey rink, because I won't allow my son to have to be locked in a room downstairs under the stands when I don't have control over the narrative and over what these traumatized coaches who've never seeked out treatment are passing on to these young children in hockey culture.
When did you stop drinking? How long have you been sober for?
So drinking isn't my thing. My phenomenon of craving was opiates, and I'm coming up on 5 years clean in September.
And the opiates that you took, what was the purpose? Was it the high? Was it the pain killing effect? Was it trying to go into sort of an alternative universe where you hadn't had the painful past? What was it?
So I injured my PCL in the NHL when I was 21, and the trainers in the NHL walk up and down the aisle with painkillers and Ambiens. And so he gave me a painkiller for the first time at 21. And for the first time in my life, I numbed out, and it was amazing. I didn't feel any of the pain. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel any of the angst or the frustration that I couldn't recognize. And the only way that I was able to get that out was through this persona car bomb on the ice by taking my liberties with people. And after that, I seeked out the opiates, because not only did it take away the physical pain, which there's a lot of that in the NHL, it took away that emotional pain. And it only took about 3 years till I made some mistakes. I was in the substance abuse program, and then at 25, my life started to become unmanageable, and I could correlate it back to this synthetic heroin that they were prescribing me. And so I had an opportunity where I hurt my leg, my ACL. I had a reconstructive surgery, and after that, I couldn't get off the pills again. And so I asked to go to rehab, and that's really when my life changed. I found meditation and mindfulness practices and changing your diet. And you know, at 25, my life off the ice and my whole career changed, and I started living the right way. I started being a good teammate, and I got rewarded. You know, I went to the Stanley Cup finals 4 times in my last 5 years with 3 different teams, and nobody's ever done that before. And I'm nobody special, man. And it shouldn't have happened to me, but I feel like it did, because I was living the right way, and my luck was a sure thing.
So, Taya, you just heard Daniel's story. What do you relate to in his story?
Well, first of all, your story is incredible, and I almost teared up hearing you talk about it. I do agree with you about the villainous persona, and how when you're doing a good job at being bad, people notice.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because that's part of my job too, is to carry that on, right? Oh man. So my sister was a drug addict, and she passed away from an overdose a few years ago. So I relate to your story a lot that way. So I don't know. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah. And you know, the idea, for some reason in our society, we all think we have to apologize for showing emotion.
We're Canadian too, so we apologize for everything.
Right. Well, I mean, that is a symptom to some extent of mental health challenges. People with depression, which that would be me. We have the ability to say, I am sorry, better than anybody else on the planet, because you kind of attribute everything to being your own fault. But what I was going to say was that you should apologize if you could tell that story about the loss of your sister to drug addiction without showing emotion. To me, that would be more appropriate to apologize for than your reaction to one of the worst things that any of us can ever imagine.
Yeah. There were so many things about your story that are relatable for me, because in professional wrestling, when you're coming up and starting, everyone's like, oh, you're new, you're green, or you always feel like, I don't know, when I'd only been wrestling a year when I moved to Mexico, and I was not, nobody accepted me with open arms. We'll just put it that way. And I was entering into a cultural experience with lucha libre because, in Mexican culture, lucha libre is so important and such an iconic thing. And I was this Canadian girl that just wanted to be part of it. And so I got beat up, humiliated, like all that kind of stuff that you're talking about, like happens, and all I wanted was to be accepted and to be recognized for how much work I was doing. I was in a country by myself where I didn't speak the language. I learned the language in 6 months because I had to survive. And I was traveling on a subway to train in the morning, to train in the afternoon, to train at night, just to be accepted. And I'm so fortunate that I had certain people like who are Conan and Paraguayo and AAA that like allowed me to shine. But I mean, there were so many people that just wanted to see me fail. And those kind of things, like you said, really come through when I'm wrestling, and why I'm so determined and passionate and just, tell me I can't do it and I will do it. And I will do it so good that you are going to be so much more mad at me for being so good at it. So I relate to all of that, man. That's like an incredible story. And then like my sister, Bria, passed away 4 years ago from an overdose, and she had been dealing with mental health issues her whole life. I mean, I went away to university and she was still in high school, and I just didn't realize how bad it was, I guess. And it went on for years and years. And I feel horrible that we weren't able to save her, but I hope that people can like take something from this. And if you have issues, like people sometimes don't know how bad it is. And we all knew how bad it was and we tried. And sometimes you can't save everybody, but, I don't know. I want to say I'm sorry again.
There's a whole bunch to unpack in what you just said. My brother was a drug addict and should have died a million times over. And, my brother's kind of proof that drug addiction has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has, sometimes it has nothing to do with your station in life or your background. I mean, I grew up in the most loving home imaginable. My brother is one of the smartest people on the planet. He's a kidney doctor in Vancouver, and he was addicted to alcohol and to prescription pills, taking so much that he should have died. And now he's been clean and sober for 20 years. But he represents everything that you would think would keep somebody away from drug addiction. But here's the thing. People didn't know, because you don't know what people don't want you to know. That's the thing about mental illness, is that I can fool people. I fooled people. I did 500 TV shows, severely depressed, and not once did anyone who was a viewer ever say to me, "Are you okay?" So, talking about your sister, it's possible that she only allowed you to see the things that she wanted you to see.
Yeah. And I mean, I was living in Calgary, going to school, and then like I stayed there, and then I went to Mexico to do my career and everything like that, and then to the States. But like my mom and my dad like went through so much with her, for her fighting for, I can't even imagine. And as much as I felt at the time that I knew what was going on, it's just heart-wrenching for me sometimes just to think like what I didn't know, and just like you said, we only allow people to see what we want them to see. And there's been lots of times when I suffer from anxiety for all numerous amounts of reasons, from just stressful life and traveling and being put in weird situations. And constantly as an athlete, we are trained to be the best 24/7. Like if we're not the best, we don't even know what that means. So you're constantly putting that pressure on yourself, and everyone around you is like, do it better, do it better, do it better. And like, but I only allow certain people to see that, or I don't even allow people to see it. I think my husband is probably the only person that sees me at the end of the day having a freak out because my crossbody off the top rope wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? Like
I noticed that too. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
I was watching some tape.
We
and I
put
thought,
this
oh my God.
we put this pressure on ourselves, and I get that, but like everybody is internally having their own personal struggle, and you don't know what someone is going through ever, really.
Yeah.
Daniel, this is one of the few, this show that we created. When I say we, my daughter and I and about 4 or 5 other people created this show called Isolation Nation. And it's really one of the few places that I could ask the question that I'm going to ask you without seeming bizarre or insensitive or, oh my God, where did that come from? Or I can't believe he asked that question. But on this show, I asked the question on Friday. There was 2 guests. You would know Nate Thompson probably. Nate Thompson, longtime NHLers, played for 8 teams. Now he's going to go back and play with the Flyers when hockey returns. You know Nate, right?
Yeah, I know of him. Yeah, I don't know him personally.
So I asked the question, Nate, did you ever think of suicide? And he told a story about how he had not only thought about it, he had called his mom and said, you know, Mom, I'm really struggling. And his mom said, oh, thank God that you called me, because I thought that my next phone call would be from somebody to tell me that you weren't alive anymore, that you were dead. And there was an actor on the show. Her name is Amanda Cruz. She was in a show called Silicon Valley. And she said, me too. And like I said, it's one of the few places that you can ask this question. You ever have a thought of suicide?
Yeah. Most definitely. It was a year ago, actually today. Today's my 1-year anniversary of doing a traditional psilocybin ceremony to regain my brain health and break destructive thought patterns that I had. And I've been on a 4-year journey since 2015 to recover my brain health. So last year, June 1, I'd spent around $200,000 at these concussion clinics that all of the white coats were telling me to go to. And they kept telling me, just, keep doing these exercises and your symptoms are going to go away and you'll build new neurological pathways. And I was dealing with a lot of light sensitivity issues, slurred speech, short and long-term memory loss, a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression, probably stemming from obviously the chemical imbalance in my brain, but the insomnia as well. And so in trying everything, right? Because the number one thing is we don't want to be sick. So I wanted to try everything in my power to regain my quality of life and then enjoy my young child and enjoy my wife and enjoy my life after hockey. And I just wasn't getting the recovery necessary. And I track everything with science and blood work and QEEGs, which is a brain scan. And so, back up a year ago, and I did, I think it was May 15th, I did a QEEG. I'd spent all this money, wasn't feeling good. And then I saw this QEEG and it was still red. And I was at the end of my rope. I really thought that there was nothing else that I could try. My wife, her friends wanted nothing to do with me. They didn't want to be around me. I don't blame them. It seemed like my kids didn't even want to be around me. I didn't want to be around my kids. I was always in my own head. I felt like my mother and father-in-law hated me. My family, that was fractured, and they're in Toronto and I'm here, basically a man on an island. And I don't want my kids to see me growing up that way. I don't want them to think that that's normal. And so I felt like a burden to everybody around me. And I felt like if I was gone, it would be so much better. So I started to make I started planning for the next 2 weeks. There were times when I was sitting in this truck and, I have a picture of my kids in here and that saved me a couple times. But I just wanted to put this truck as fast as I could into a tree and with no seatbelt on. And then there's really big beams in my house. And, I had these images of hanging myself there and like you have these thoughts and, but then I always was able to like kind of talk myself through it. Like, well, if your kids come home, like that'll scar them forever. And your wife, you don't want to do that. And so I kept, talking myself out of it. And then last year, June 1, I had this trip to a farm and I did this ceremony with this medicine and it stimulated regions of my brain that were shut down due to trauma. And my frontal lobe came back and my sense of self and this narrative that was so negative before and hypercritical started to turn into something positive, and I was able to start mending those fractured relationships. And but the number one thing that happened was I started loving myself. You have to love yourself first in order to give it away. And then I wanted to be around my kids, and I was more patient. The loud noises weren't affecting me. And, 6 months later, I did more QEEGs without doing the concussion clinic stuff that everybody tells you, and without all of that stuff that just costs way too much money. And it's not equitable for most people. So I wanted to find a way as a mental health advocate to give this type of recovery to people, and at an equitable price, that people could afford it and tap in. And then at 6 months, I have no more abnormalities. I don't suffer from anxiety anymore. I don't suffer from depression. I definitely I haven't had a suicidal thought since that ceremony. So, it was a really scary time in my life. I made a post today on Instagram about it. It was just like by far the darkest period of my life. And I'm so happy, not only for me, but for my loved ones and my friends and family that I'm getting better.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Taya, how about you? Have you had thoughts over the course of obviously really challenging times in your life, and also you just learned of? Were you friends with Hannah Kimura? I don't know if you knew her or not.
I did know her. I wrestled for Stardom about 3.5 years ago, and I met her there. So she would have just been, 19, 18 years old. Me personally, yes, I feel like everybody at some point feels helpless. And for me, it was like right after my sister died. And I was still living in Mexico. I was confused. I didn't know what to do with my life. I felt like I just didn't have an understanding of what that next step was going to be. And I felt extremely lost. And I don't talk about this. But, I was able to get through it because honestly, I'm selfish and I want to have a life and I want to be, I just knew, I don't know, like I felt like I was like, oh my God, like I don't know. It was just like very confusing. I felt very depressed for a long time when I was living in Mexico, just based on the fact that I felt alone all the time. And I didn't feel like anyone understood me, and a numerous amount of things. And then my sister passed away, and then my dog passed. It was like this whole horrible, 3-month period. And I had just started dating John, my now husband. And I remember just being like, oh my God, he's not going to stay with me. I'm a complete mess. Like I am just one horrible thing after another. And I was filming Lucha Underground at the time, and just being like not able to just hold it together. Like I was just a fake person because I was just trying to go through life without letting people know how absolutely utterly depressed I was and anxious and not eating. I suffered from eating disorder for the last 2 years of my life in Mexico, just based on the anxiety that I had of just wanting to be accepted. And all of that just kind of evolved with the death of my sister and all these other things. And it was just a really horrible time in my life. And coming out of it now, I wish I could shake me then, and be like, you don't need to feel like this. And a lot of it was put on myself, and I'm aware of that now, and insecurities, and being a young woman in entertainment, and every year that passes, the world is telling you you're too old, or you're too fat, or you're too this, or you're too that. And a lot of it was definitely put on me and myself. So I don't know. I feel like it was just a really horrible time, and I'm glad that I'm out of it. And I'm so thankful that John just held me together, stuck me back together with glue, I swear. And I'm just happy that I've come out the other side, and I'm able to talk to you guys about it, and also try to be as open as possible and as transparent as possible with everybody else.
This has been pretty amazing for me to hear. I've known Daniel for a while now, and we have shared mental health battles and talked about it. He's heard me speak. I've heard him speak, give speeches. And yet I've learned so much today about him. And you, obviously, I did not know before, but I had read about you, but I never heard a fraction of what I just heard. And unfortunately, it's we've been going for 45 minutes now. Could we find a time to continue this?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Daniel, I wasn't asking you, Carcillo.
Oh, okay, my bad.
No,
My bad.
I could just say, hey, Carcillo, we got to do this. And you'd say, okay, just the way I would say the same thing to you. But there's so much more to talk about. And there's so much more benefit to what you guys have said for other people that I think we have to continue it. So you guys hold on one sec. I'm going to wrap up the show. We're going to skip the two pieces that we had ready to go, because I thought it was much more valuable for us to hear from the two of you than to continue a couple of other storylines. But we'll do that tomorrow. And thank you to both of you for sharing way more than we at Signat we could have hoped for. And it's all about the sharing, and it's all about the deeper that you go, the more you help other people. You can say, I've been cyberbullied, which is beneficial, but to say what it does to you, what it did to you, is incredibly impactful. So thanks to both of you guys.
Thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for having me, and nice to meet you, Daniel.
Yeah,
and
nice to meet
thank
you, Kira.
for your story. I'm taken aback. Thank
So
you.
hold on, and I will just wrap up the show, and then we'll talk a little bit more. And I went for another fortune here.
Need it.
You will be successful in your career,
Oh.
which is better than reading at my stage in my career, better than reading you were successful in your career. So I'm pretty happy with the tense that they used. And on the flip side, it's in French, but I think what it means is you have met two wonderful people today who have put their own stories out on the line for the benefit of others. Please say thank you to them and invite them back. It says all of that. Can you imagine that? I mean, I don't speak French, but
That's
what
a
it
big
says.
fortune and an important one.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon. We'll see you tomorrow on Isolation Nation.